I'm Scott. That's great. And I've been getting around to doing this for a couple of years, so it's about time. So, you've been watching too many movies. You're crazy. You're a conspiracy theorist. Those are all ways of gaslighting. And what's gaslighting? It's a deception that divides to destroy. And what are they trying to destroy? Joy. Well, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Oh, man. But all men are created equal, and we're endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. And among those rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What's that? That's the joy that they're trying to destroy. Destroy our opportunities to pursue happiness the way we want to. How do they do that? With alienation psychology, the same psychology that they use to alienate parents from another parent. Or schools are trying to alienate us from parents. They try to alienate us from God, our Father, you know? They first try to get our kids to disavow reality. You know, gaslighting is trying to turn the truth on its head. It's a form of psychological abuse, manipulation in which a person or group covertly sows seeds of doubt, confusion about reality, in a targeted individual, making them question their own memory, perception, or judgment, often evoking in them cognitive dissonance and other characteristics of complex PTSD or even borderline personality disorder, like self-harm and suicidal ideation. They're teaching our kids to hate themselves, to hate their origins of our nation, their race, their gender, anything they can, to just get them to submit to whatever they tell them to do. They're not teaching them critical thinking anymore. They're teaching them to be narcissistically critical of anyone who thinks for themselves. We have to think for ourselves as they try to program us. Like one famous computer programmer is now a people programmer, basically. Anyway, one way that they usurped our power, you know, the power of the people, we the people in America we're supposed to have the power, law in 1913. One way they did it was the 16th Amendment. The federal government wasn't allowed to tax individuals until 1913, until that amendment was fraudulently ratified. There were some states, information didn't travel as fast as it does now. So, by word of mouth, some states heard about it. Oh, sounds like a good idea. They didn't hear all the details. By the time they'd heard all the details and read really what it was, they had ratified it, and then they rescinded the ratification. But then it was ratified, counting their ratification. So actually, we should not even be paying the federal government at all. Yeah. We should only have to be taxed by the states.
Yep.
When the federal government takes our money and then extorts our states and blackmails them with like infrastructure dollars. You won't get your highway money unless you pass a seatbelt law. Don't have privacy in my car and risk my security or safety. And tyranny is always based on safety. That's how they locked us down last time. They took away everything. So, safety. In parental alienation, the three narratives they're not available, they're not loving, and they're not safe. And they just if you repeat a lie enough times, people believe it. We've seen it on the news, on the TV, on the major corporate media, because the corporations want the power. They're the ones that can now, because of that 16th Amendment, they can bribe our Congress people. They have an incentive to get our Congress people to give them a loophole where they don't pay much in taxes, but we all have to pay our fair share. And they promised that in 1913 on a false promise, a lie, that we'll only tax the rich. And we've seen how that did not work out. Another way they do it, they take our power, was with unelected agencies. And we've seen that when they first locked us down for the first week. Our governor ran around to every agency in Minnesota and changed the rules so they would fit his narrative throughout the lockdown. So it all worked for him. And then our AG is really, he used those agencies to bureaucratically extort anyone that did not follow his mandates, which are not laws. The executive branch is not the legislative branch. It does not make laws. So that's pretend legislation. We have to really follow the Constitution. We have to learn the Constitution. And there are Constitution classes spreading around, not just Minnesota and Wisconsin, but all over. And they're online, and there's curriculum available. You can teach them too. So get into that if you can. We need to learn not just what it is. Anybody can read it. Too few people do, but we need to learn where it came from, why they wrote it. You know, the Declaration of Independence does list a bunch of grievances that the people had, that King George III was narcissistically abusing the people. It wasn't just about taxes. Anyway, some people did stand up in 2020, or just ignore. Narcissists hate it when you ignore them. So they just ignored the mandate. And they really did stand up for the liberty of everybody and our ability to be able to have businesses that provide our livelihoods. Because socialists, they want to prove that they are the provider and the protector. God does that. And we have the power to do that ourselves in America. Not many other countries can you do it like we do. But some of the people that kept their businesses open, boy, the bureaucratic extortionists came down with for one of them, he came down with a stack of punishment paperwork. And they've been harassing and trying to punish people for doing what we have constitutional right to do, run our own business. Lisa Hansen was thrown in jail for 90 days, or sentenced to 90 days, and served 60, because that's how it works. The judge in that case would not allow the defense to mention the Constitution in any of the trial. That's pulling the rug out from all of the logic of the defense. And what do we need to do for gaslighting? To recognize and unwrap gaslighting? You should just know some logic. Like one of my favorite classes in first year of college was logic. They called it a math class. It's funny how they call storage. It's funny how they call math racist. Like they call anything they don't like racist. Just to throw a deflection from using logic. In logic, there's fallacies of logic, like ad hominem, ad hoc. There's a whole lot of them. If you learn those, you can recognize, oh, they're arguing, just by calling me a name. So anyway, one of the people that really stood up for the liberty of everybody in Minnesota and your country, this is the front lines now. St. Paul is. But one person was Larvita McFarquhar. She has Haven's Garden in Lynn, Minnesota. And she was the one that received that stack of punishment paperwork from Ellison. And she's here to talk about her experience. So, Larvita McFarquhar.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Better? Okay. I'm Larvita McFarquhar. I'm not sure if you guys know who I am, but I'm the owner of Haven's Garden and Prestige Gymnastics in Lynn, Minnesota. I have 4 daughters, and I'm just going to, I don't know if you know my story, I'm just telling you a little bit about it. But the governor, Ellison, can you hear me?
Try to keep the mic real close.
Really close? Right there? Okay, you guys just tell me if I need to put it back up. Well, I'm just gonna skip ahead and just go over my last trial that I'm dealing with right now because we're still sort of in it. And right now I'm still fighting the mask mandates in Minnesota. So they had got me for trespassing and disorderly conduct for bringing my daughter, who was a junior in high school, but she was doing the PSEO program, and I brought her to her college. Because she was being bullied by her professors, and she was scared to go to her class. And so I called the police department, I called the sheriff's department to ask, can you take my daughter to school? She's being bullied, she's scared. And they said no, and I should also tell you, she has an exemption. I gave it to the school saying she has a medical, religious exemption, and I said the Constitution. And they don't want to hear it. And that's what we're all understanding now, is that nobody wants to listen to what we have to say. They think they can do whatever they want. But that's not the case. The case is we, as parents, we're learning now with CRT, that we are the ones who are supposed to be training up our children. We are the ones who God has entrusted to us these children, to raise them in a godly way, to love him and to do what's right. And if we don't speak up, who's going to, you know? And so that was all I try to tell my girls, you know, for us, it's speak up for God, ourselves, and others. And sometimes as a parent, which is very difficult, when we know something is harming our children, no matter if the world's against us, we have to speak up. And so the sheriff's department told me, no, they can't do anything, they're not gonna take her. The police department wouldn't help me. So I told her, I'll take you to school. So I walked her to her class, and the sad part is, I wasn't in the class, I was outside. She walked in, went to the back of the classroom. Her professor's behind her desk, and she yells behind her desk to my daughter, "You can't be in here without a face mask on," in front of the whole class. All the kids are sitting there, "You can't be in here without a face mask on." And then I said, "I'm calling security." Mind you, my daughter's 16. And I'm standing outside, and she says, then I get upset because she goes around the desk like she's going after my daughter, and she says, so I shouldn't say her name, I'm sorry. "You can't be in here without a face coming on." So I peeked my head around and I said, "Yes, she can. She has every right to be in here, and you should be teaching these kids about the Constitution and standing up for your rights." Long story. So, and I said, "And go ahead and call the security officer because I'm calling the sheriff." And I called the sheriff again. Of course, they didn't come. Then the security officer came and we talked, and I call it the scarlet letter. I don't know how many of you guys have that, an exemption, but we have the Constitution, right? We don't need a letter to say that we can breathe the air that Yahweh has given us. We don't need to wear a mask. But I followed their unlawful, unethical, unmandatory, unbiblical mandate. And I had an exemption for my daughter, and I had to carry that around. And she has the Constitution that she carried around. She had the mandate that she carried around. And she gave it to the professor, she gave it to them, but they don't want to listen. And the security officer, so we talked, I show him all of this. He said, "Oh, you can't be here." So we had a nice talk for about 15 minutes. I said, "Okay." So he said, "You have to leave," and I left. And I came back, I called the sheriff again. I said, "My daughter has another class, will you take her to her class?" They said no. So I go back, I bring her up to her other classroom, and the security officer comes, he called the police department, they came, and long story, so they cited me for trespassing. And it says on the trespassing, failure to wear face covering as stipulated by SMSU. And so then I left, and the next day, she has to go to school again. I should have told you. I told the security officer, I said, "Don't talk to my daughter." I said, "The police, you can talk to her, I'm here. Do not talk to my daughter, she's underage, leave her alone." So the next day I go, I had a couple friends bring her to her class, because you don't understand, I don't know how many of you gone to a store or anything else like that without a mask on.
Yeah.
It's scary, even for me, even now.
Yeah.
I shake, I get upset, and I do it because that's what we have to do. We have to fight for ourselves, others, and let them know that they're not alone. And so I'm waiting outside, the security officer stops her at the door, and my other daughter's with there, and the friends, and he's telling them, "Oh, you can't be in here without a face mask on, put a face shield on. Why are you in here without a face covering?" And she said, "I have a doctor's note." He didn't care. He's like, "Doesn't matter, you can wear a face shield." And she said, "My doctor said I can't wear a face shield." And so then after he's telling my friends, "I'm gonna get you for trespassing," because I'm standing outside, I'm like, oh. So I go in there and I said, "You can't do that. You can't do that. You're like, they're going to leave." But he didn't care, so it started this. He's just going back and forth, and he has the nerve to say to me and my daughter, "Those kids have a right to their education," meaning in the classroom. I said, "My daughter has a right to her education. What do you mean? She doesn't have, because she's not wearing a face covering, she has no right to an education? Are you kidding me?" And so this is when I said I was being a bad parent, because I was talking under my breath to my daughter, because she's in shock. I should have known, but I didn't, because when it's happening, it's all so fast, you don't know what's going on, and I'm talking under my breath to my daughter. You're a parent, the main voice, you're like, "Get into the classroom," and I'm telling her to go to her classroom, and still trying to have a conversation with the security guard, and she didn't know where her classroom was, and so I said, "I'm gonna take EJ class, let's go." And he's yelling, the security officer, this whole time, "Student, don't go to your class, student, don't go to your class." And I'm getting upset, because I'm like, how dare you tell my daughter to disobey me? Not only me, but the doctor, God, you're gonna tell her that you have a right, that you think you can supersede my authority? Like, are you kidding me? And that's what we're learning now, that these governments have no idea what their authority lies, and it lies in we the people, not them. And so, then I'm taking my daughter. So I opened the door and it was the wrong class. We don't step in, nothing. I just said to him, excuse me, my daughter belongs in this classroom. And he says, that's not our, the security officer says, that's not our classroom. And I'm like, so then I do the non-mean voice again to my daughter, like, where's your class? And she was like, sorry. And so then she looks and she says it's around the corner. So we walk around the corner and the security guard's yelling at her the whole time, like, student, don't go to your class, student, don't go to your class. And I'm, you know, like heated, and we're walking to her class. I drop her off and I come back, and my friends who are standing out front, they said, oh, the policeman went around the other way to take your daughter out of class. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? So I walk around there, and the policemen are up there, and I'm standing with my daughter and the security guard, and I said, how dare you tell my daughter to disobey me? Like, how dare you? Who do you think you are? And the policeman told the security guard to step back and asked if they could talk to me. And I said, yes, but will you take my daughter to her class? That's all I said. Will you take my daughter to her class? She belongs in school. And they're like, no, just come on. And so we all went out and we were talking. Long story. So that's where they got me for trespassing and disorderly conduct. And so that's what I've been fighting with right now. In my last, 2 weeks ago, I had my pre-trial, and then May 4th I have my jury trial, but it's just the judge. And they did drop, which is a blessing, they did drop my disorderly conduct. They dropped that, and they just, right now they have not a petty misdemeanor, and I'm just like, this is ridiculous. But the truth is, we all need to stand up and say no. No. So now I wasn't supposed to say any of that, but I realized a lot of you don't know like where I'm coming from or who I am. So I thought I would just share a little bit of a story because you asked me to. So
thank you.
I'm gonna write what I prepared if you guys don't mind. Now is the time we pray, then act like Jesus did when he threw out the people from the temple. I say now is that time to throw out the corrupt people in power. Now is the time we resist. Now is the time we say no more. Now is the time we stand together. Now is the time we fight for our Jehovah, ourselves, each other, and our freedom. No more letting this government tell us what to think, what to put in our bodies, what our children learn. It's time to take back what the creator of the universe has blessed us with, our freedom of choice, and I choose freedom. Now is the time to set the wrongs of a corrupt government that has been out of control for so long. To all the businesses, doctors, lawyers, parents, pastors, and truckers, and everyone that stood up and fought our corrupt government, I say stand strong and do not give in to this tyrannical government and their agencies. To Governor Walz, OSHA, the Minnesota Department of Health, you knew and know that mass social distancing and lockdowns didn't and don't work. The blood, destruction, and deaths are on your hands. It's time we abolish all of these corrupt agencies that are not there to keep us safe, but are just like Gestapo and gangsters extorting money from businesses and we, the people. People around the world, I see you and I hear you. I am only one, but together we are many, and it's time we stand together. This is our time. This is our war on slavery. This is our genocide that we are allowing right in front of our eyes. We must fight and say no. In Genesis 2:7, the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. That is the vital force that makes a body live. I claim all of my inalienable rights given to me by the creator of the universe, and no man has a right to take them away. A slave master by another name, Governor Walz, is still a slave master. If he can control every aspect of our lives, from the air we breathe to when I can worship Jehovah, all the way down to if I can work, if I can go to a store, who I can or cannot see, when I can leave my house, where I can travel, what I can say, who I can see, what treatments I can receive,